Okay.
What's the biggest challenge for you with a 4-day turnaround?
I think the biggest challenge always is just the preparation part of it, but I think we're always ahead of schedule with that. I think I always get up as soon as we got back, I started watching film, on the plane, and then as soon as we get back home and kind of get ahead of schedule really, and as long as you have a plan, we've done this a lot. We've played those Thursday night games or these big prime time games, whatever you want to call them. But I think the biggest thing is always being prepared and being ahead of schedule. So it's something that we've done very, very well. Something I really pride myself in, and so I feel great about what we're trying to do and how we're going to go about it.
What's your recovery routine look like on a short week?
Yeah, the recovery routine is honestly the most important thing. It's something that is super important, obviously, to be able to get back after a physical game on Sunday from San Francisco, come back home, start getting treatment right away. From the moment you get on the plane all the way to the time you get home to getting a little bit of rest and waking up and watching film. Got up pretty early to watch film, and so as I'm watching film, getting treatment and doing all that too as well. So I think I'm a big swimmer. Getting up in the morning, swimming a bunch, getting in the water, hydration. All those little things. I think quality sleep is important. I may not get many hours, especially on a short week, but I think getting quality sleep is really important too as well. And just doing all my mobilization work, all the things that I do with Amy and the strength staff here and everything else is really important.
Do the Rams, obviously they have a new defensive coordinator this year, do they look any different in any way at all? Or you saw them 3 times last year.
They look like a great football team is what they look like they always do. I think that, obviously Coach Morris, he's been a tremendous coach throughout his career, and he really has those guys flying around and making plays and stuff like that. So we have to be on our A game. I think the biggest thing is obviously, they mix in their coverages and their shells and all that kind of stuff. But, I think their defensive line is obviously extremely talented. The linebackers can fly around, make plays. They're secondary too as well with all the players they have there too. So they do a lot of great things, and we're going to have to play our best football game.
What have you noticed about the way they're using Ramsey this year? It seems like they maybe moving him around a little more.
Yeah, they've done a really good job of mixing Jalen around. Obviously, he's such a tremendous football player. He can do everything. And he can really obviously cover guys. He can make plays on the ball. He's a physical tackler. He's really intelligent too. You can tell on film. But they've mixed him around. They've put him outside, obviously, which is a normal thing. But also they have him inside playing some slot, and he'll pressure off the edge some too. And he's just a really good football player. That you can versatile. He's one of those versatile players that's always been a playmaker. And so you really respect how he plays the game.
Does having Shane around give you any deeper understanding of what the Rams want to do on the defensive side of the ball?
I think having Shane around is just great because you really get to know kind of their players. Obviously, we've played them so much over the years, but I think he just has a great understanding of who they are and just kind of the players they are and everything else. They got a lot of great guys on that side of the ball, and it's just But I think on a short week, you don't you have enough time to really focus on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to install, and we have a great understanding of what they try to do on defense, and obviously they're very good at what they do. So. It'll be a great challenge in a good way.
Last week you were 4 for 4 in the red zone. In general, what do you have to be successful in the 20th?
Yeah, I think the red zone is such a critical area of the game. It's where you win and lose games. I think that it's a critical spot where touchdowns changes the games, and I think that for us, we've always been really, really good in the red zone. We've been powerful down there to be able to make plays, and it's just playmakers. Guys making great plays. It's tremendous blocking by the offensive line. They do a great job battling and fighting for it, and then the receivers and tight ends and running backs. Obviously having our running backs and Chris and DJ and obviously Alex Collins getting in there and running the ball. Those guys are physical in the run game, and then in terms of the passing game. Like I said, you got to have those playmakers that can catch the ball, and we really spread out the ball to everybody. I think that's the thing. Obviously, you saw Freddie make his catch last week. You see guys obviously like DK and Tyler, but we got tight ends that can get in the end zone. We've got a lot of playmakers that can catch the football, so I think that's a advantageous thing. And then I think the ultimate thing about the red zone is attitude. It's mindset. It's mindset. It's knowing that touchdowns. I always say touchdowns only. Touchdowns only. So I think that's the thing that is super important down there.
With a guy like Jalen, as a quarterback, how much do you think about who the cornerback is
Or do you just kind of look at the receiver and if he's open, or do you ever think about, who the cornerback is covering?
Yeah, I think anytime you're playing out there, I think you're always having understanding and who the guys you're playing against and what they're really, really great at, and their strengths and weaknesses if they have any. And sometimes the guys don't have many, And so Jalen's one of those guys who doesn't have many weaknesses. He's really special. He's a great football player. So you got to know where he is and what he's doing and how he plays the game.
If you had to self-scout from the last meeting with the Rams in the playoffs, what would your self-scout say about your plan?
I think that finding ways to make plays throughout the game. The biggest thing is we had the first two games we kind of battled against them. We had the game here at home that we won, and then the playoff game we just didn't play clean across the board. So I think my biggest thing is just find a way to win the game. That's always my thing. And so we had a chance there. They ended up scoring late, I think, and then game kind of got away from us. But it's all about this year. It's all about this opportunity and what we can do. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about getting out there and just playing again in front of our fans, too, and the fun, the joy of that. And we're ready for it. We're excited.
Third down continues to be an area where the offense is having some issues. From your perspective, is that more about not getting the job done in the first two downs or just not executing when you have those opportunities?
I think we've done it, for the most part, I think we've done a good job on first and second down. The times that we've struggled on third down, I think we didn't do great there. And it was third and long. We make these third 8, 9s, 10s, 11s, 15s plus. Those are tricky in the NFL. And we play good teams too. So when you're in those longer distance situations, it's a lot tougher to convert those. I think that we've been very successful for the most part when we're 3rd and 6 or lower. I think that's where we want to be at, and that's any football team, right? That's all of us, right? So we want to be in those situations. So I think if we could stay on schedule, those are our best situations, and I think we've done a good job of that, and in terms of efficiency on first and second down for the most part. But the times we've had a penalty or there's something didn't go right or this or that, I think that's where we've caught ourselves in a little bit of trouble. So I think we'll make sure that we continue to work on that and make sure we fix that.
Russ, I heard you say on Sunday that you enjoyed overcoming adversity and the challenges and all that. Is that something that you hope to impress on some of your younger teammates, or do you specifically address things like that, or you just hope that they sort of follow your lead in that regard?
I definitely think adversity is something that you talk about. You don't run away from it. You discuss it. You talk about it. You talk about the highs and the lows. You talk about the ways to get through it. I think that anytime you face challenges, I think that having a plan to continue to. I always say this, when you're watching film and you're going throughout a great week, and then maybe the next week wasn't the best or whatever it may be, as a team, as a player, as whatever, you think about, okay, what did we do really well, and then what can we work on? And I think not trying to harp on the positives too much and get and all that, but also not trying to harp on the negatives too much either. Just trying to figure out, hey, what's the better way? How can we get better? This, and that. And every game plays itself out different. Each game is its own story. Each game is its own story. And so I think that, in life, I believe the same thing. Every morning, every day is a new day. It's just one of those things that I really believe that the sun comes up in the morning, and you got to look at it that way. And okay, how do we address today? And I think that's the great thing about this game. That's the great thing about sports. That's what I love about when I was playing baseball. Every day you go up to you have a new day. In football, it's another day to get better. And if you can get better on Monday, then next thing you know, Tuesday's better, then Wednesday, then Thursday, then Friday. You give yourself a chance in life to be successful. And I think that's just kind of always been my mentality and always been my goal is, today is the only day I got, and I'm going to get better today. And so I think to be able to discuss that and to encourage younger guys and younger players too on that, whether it's football or life or Bible studies or whatever it may be, I think it's really important to express that experience that I've gone through and the good things, all the great things, all the amazing times, and also some of the tough ones too. And you challenge each other to get better, and that's where that love and accountability and that work ethic is so important. And having a plan every day. If you're a young guy, you got to have a plan every day. You got to have a plan of how you're going to approach your prehab, your rehab, your weight room, your film study, your plan, all of that. It all matters, and the lifestyle can't be random. You got to have a plan, and I think that's so important. And then I think finally, I think the last thing is that in terms of adversity, is what you say is going to typically be what you become. And I really believe that. I think a lot of times, you say something negative, it's probably what's going to happen. If you say something positive, say something that's neutral, say something that's, the truth, and say something that, hey, this is where I'm going, this is how I'm going to get there, and you have a plan, it's more likely to happen. And that's just what I believe.
How important are victories like Sunday for young guys to go through that kind of early struggle and then to embrace all those challenges and then to overcome and win the way you did when they're trying to learn all these lessons like that?
I think anytime, I think that's so important. It's a great question. I think anytime you're in, anytime you're in a season, anytime you're going through a long season like we go through every year, 17 regular season games and more, it's one of those things that, there's going to be ebbs and flows of the game. There's going to be ebbs and flows of the season. And that's why I think, really, honestly, that's why I always say that neutral thinking is such a critical part to it. But I think that you can't get too high, you can't get too low. It's one of those things that, that language on the sideline is so important, language in the locker room at halftime, all those things, it really impacts the thought process. It impacts the mind. It impacts the decision making. And so, I think that's really critical, and I think that those kind of games really actually build you up to be a better team. And I think those kind of games where we were it was battling and wasn't going the best right away, but it ended up really strong. I think those are the things that you want to be able to build off of, and it shows that we can do a lot of great things too. And we just got to be cleaner and we got to be better, and when we can do that, we have a chance to be unstoppable.
Freddie Swain had the big catch last week. How have you seen him kind of grow and mature this year?
What I love about Freddie Swain, since the moment he's gotten here, he's put the work first. And I think about this offseason, about Freddie, and ever since he got here, he put the work first. But I think about this offseason when we were down in San Diego and all the guys were all working out together and having a good time and, putting in the hard work. I think the thing about Freddie that was really great was you could tell that he was playing for a purpose. He was playing for his family, he was playing for his daughter, and playing just for this meaning of trying to be the best that he could possibly be. And I really love him. He's an energetic guy. He's a guy who knows his stuff. You tell him one thing, you don't have to tell him again. He gets it. He's spot on. He's extremely smart, extremely cerebral. He's a guy who's got great hands, got great route runner. He's physical in the running game. He just can do everything. And I really love Freddie's mentality. What he brings to the game. You trust him. That's the biggest thing in playing this quarterback position, receiver dynamic. You got to trust those guys, and you got to trust where you're going to be, how I'm going to be there. And then when something does go crazy and does go awry, can you show up? And I think that he shows up in a great way. And his mentality, his attitude is right every day. He comes in and he works extremely hard in the weight room. He works extremely hard in the meeting room. He sits right in the front with him and DK and takes his notes, asks questions, does the right thing. He's a true pro, and he's been that way since day one, and he's getting even better at it. And that's where it's a dangerous thing to see Freddie Swain just getting better and better and better every day. So I love it.
Where was he in the progression on that touchdown pass, and where was he supposed to be as to where he ended up?
He ended up, he was going to be in the flat, and then he just kind of played ball, which is natural movement by him. He did a great job, but he was really my fourth or fifth read, really, in that situation on that play in San Francisco.
What stands out about the way the Rams cover DK compared to some other teams?
Well, they mix it up. They do a good job of doubling them sometimes, and they single them up every once in a while, and this and that. So I think they do a really good job with their coverage, and they do a good job with their front and their movements and stuff like that up front. So they have a good scheme.
What were you missing Sunday without Gerald out there? And are you hopeful he'll be back out there this week?
Yeah, super hoping that Gerald can get back out there. I think that. Obviously Gerald's just got this amazing playmaking ability. He's hard to tackle, man. You watch his cut-ups, you watch all his highlights, you watch all that. But also, too, it's just his hands, his ability to catch the football is a beautiful thing. So he's got great confidence out there. Gerald Everett's, really a special player. So hopefully we can get him back out this week. I'm not sure on that yet, but, that's what we're hoping for.
You've now gotten 5 starts with Kyle Fuller snapping the ball to you. How have you seen him progress now that he's gotten that experience under his belt?
Well, Kyle Fuller's maturation, you go back to last year, I think we played them at L.A., and he stepped in, in the Rams. He did a great job stepping in. He even got dinged up in that game, kept playing through it. I think what I really appreciate about Kyle Fuller is that he's been so dedicated to the process. He's working his butt off to try to be great every day. He's such an athletic player. He's really extremely cerebral too, and he's physical. So you really like him up front. He's got this great confidence about him. So, Kyle's doing a great job of it.
Is Aaron Donald probably the most difficult defender in your career?
Yeah, I think about some of the great players I've played. I've played some amazing players in my career. I go back to those when you played in Candlestick, and you're playing, Justin Smith and Alden Smith and Bowman and Willis. Those guys were really talented. I think about, some of the safeties and Charles Woodson and some of the guys we've played against, and Julius Peppers, that was cool, playing against him. I remember watching him, I think Aaron Donald's definitely, arguably the best I've ever played against in terms of all the things he can do. He's a three technique that can get to the quarterback. You don't see that very often. He's a guy that causes havoc in the run game, pass game. He's a really great player in that sense, and he's been doing it. I think that you can measure somebody's greatness by their consistency throughout their career, and I think that his consistency has been, remarkable. And he puts the work in and he does a great job of it. So that consistency at such a high level, you can't argue that he's probably the best. I've played some amazing players along the way. Urlachers of the world, some cool guys. But definitely, he's one of those guys I'll definitely tell my kids about, when I'm old, I'm rocking chairs. And, this guy, he's one of those guys for sure.
One thing specifically about a prime time game at home that you're looking forward to that obviously we haven't experienced in a while?
Yeah, I think every game you play at home here in the stadium in Lumen is a special, chilling moment, But to wear the lime green jerseys at home, whatever color we call them, lime green, whatever color we call them, but just wearing the green jerseys at home, wearing the feeling of Seattle and the special community that we have. I think sports is really building the city up in such a special way. You see the Kraken, you see the Mariners, what the Mariners did, you see, what the Seattle Storm have done, and just obviously the Seahawks. And it's just a special community, the Sounders. It's this very special sports community, and so our fans are the best in the world. And I think that when people can't argue it, it's a really special place, whether for home or away. And every game when we go in San Francisco, they're the first ones there in the stands early in pregame warm-ups. I'm just getting my sweat on early out in the warm-ups, and I'm like, man, these fans are already here. It's a special thing, and to see our, young kids and the fans that have been fans for a long time since '76. It's a special thing, and so I think the blue and green runs deep, and it's a special place. And so, hopefully we can continue to make that rise and continue to do something special throughout the season and hopefully this weekend.
What goes into having an offense that naturally creates opportunities for your receivers and tight ends to get yards after the catch?
Yeah, first of all, I think the line does a great job of protecting and giving me a chance to make those throws, but I think the receivers do a great job of separating, getting yards after catch, that yak, and just being able to get open. I think guys, are such a. I think about Disley, how he caught the ball against the Colts and just stiff armed the guy and just made an amazing effort, and just some of the things he's done. I think about Alex Collins and what he did in the catching the ball in the flat and making it a 40-yard gain, and DK Metcalf coming on the backside on the 3rd and 1, a critical play in the game. He makes a great play to his extra effort on the touchdown catch where he dove for the end zone. Guys like Tyler and guys like Freddie. I think that it's the mentality and the work ethic that they put into it in practice every day that allows them to be great on the field. And so I think there's no mistaking why they're great and why they're great at catching and transitioning and doing all that, because of their attitude, their mentality, their work ethic, their professionalism every day. And it's not just on practice days during the season; it's all off season. So it's cool to be a part of something so special and what those guys are doing.
Game adjustment stuff. How important is Austin for you on game day?
Yeah, Austin's great on game day, man. He's played the game. I call him Niner. He wore number 9. For the Rams. He's a guy who who's just a great quarterback. Who I got to know along the way. I always just noticed his body language in terms of how he saw the game, how he talked about the game, just his mentality around it. Austin Davis has been, Coach Davis, he's been great in that sense. He's young, he's vibrant. He brings a great attitude. We have a great quarterback room. Obviously, Dave Canales is in there. Tater's in there. We have Shane in there too as well. And so, but Austin, he's played the game at a high level. He's been there. I think also too, what he gets is he keeps it simple. He doesn't overcomplicate things. In terms of, we keep focused on the fundamentals. The fundamentals of the game and just playing the game and having fun while doing it and making plays. And so, I think that I love working with Austin because he understands the game, he sees the game, he processes the game extremely well like a quarterback, because he played it, and in the National Football League, which is a very rare thing to do. and he's done a great job coaching. He's going to be a great coach along the way.
Did you really put a note about the 49ers mascot in here?
Yeah, Sourdough Sam. Yeah, number 49. Yeah, I tried to throw that in there just to see if guys would recognize. You put on a long list of players, and sometimes the guys just read through it. So I put number 49, Sourdough Sam. And, it's a real possible number for somebody, but obviously nobody's wearing that right now. And so to to throw that in there was pretty good. So yeah.
Who caught it? Anybody who caught it?
DK caught it. Yeah, DK caught it. He was like, Sourdough Sam? And so, but the thing is, once they get the answer right, they still gotta get, I quiz them once they get the answer right, just to make sure that they're not just reading through. So I'll quiz them on a few other things about the notes. So they have to read it, So it's one of those things that, oh shoot, okay, all right, here's my 3 questions for you. So Post-it got it this week. I'm not gonna tell you guys what it is yet, but maybe after the game.
Did a college professor do that, or what's the idea? That sounds like a college professor trick.
No, I've had people do it to me in college, but I think just to throw in something random to keep them guessing, making sure that they're doing the process, and it's fun, it's engaging that way too. It keeps it fun. It's not just notes, it's not just it's putting a little innovation on it. So I've been doing it for years. It's cool.
You had football guys do that to you mean, or teachers?
No, I've had professors kind of do it, and then Coach Bible actually, he kind of does it, but he doesn't do it on paper. But he used to do it in college too. Actually, now I think about it, he used to kind of trick you with a question, and it's like, yeah, that one's right, yeah. No, it's not right, So he'll kind of get you that way, set you up, So I think that's always fun.
Anything else, guys?
All right, go Hawks. Yep. Thank you guys.